What drew me to Carnival in the first place? Um, I don't know that it was like that. It was like you woke up one morning and you were in it. From very young, my mother primarily took us to the Juve, me and my brother, and somehow the Juve was always a story, and it was a theater because there's a lighting cue. It starts in the dark and ends up in the light. And she was the kind of person who explained everything to us. So you can imagine her with these two boys, 5, 6 years old, and she's telling them a story based on everything that you see. So it's like a show and tell, the steel bands, the characters, the bands, the mud bands, the devils. Not that I wasn't afraid of them, but there was such a context that she gave to everything that it seemed like it was part of part of life, part of what we are. But you know the interesting thing about that? I went away years later. When I say went away, left Trinidad, went to Canada to study theater. And in my degree, I never touched anything on Carnival and all of that. That seemed like another world. We should be looking at Carnival on all levels. I prefer to talk about mass than this Carnival because mass is what the theater person in me is interested in, because mass is a way of negotiating self in an environment, in a social environment or whatever environment. The Caribbean, for me, the organizing principle of the Caribbean, of the West Indies, is emancipation. And emancipation, not emancipation as a 19th century happening, but emancipation as a way of life, emancipation of. So in studying Carnival, you're not only studying the Caribbean and how the Caribbean freed itself from where capitalism began in the New World, where globalization began, but you're also studying an emancipation process which is relevant to everybody. It's not just relevant to black people or people in the Caribbean, it's relevant to everybody. So in studying that, you're studying a number of things. You're studying the initiation of globalization, then you're studying how people free themselves from that bondage, that oppression of what Western civilization has become. The stick fighter and stick fighting, which is Kalinda, that is the name of the martial art, is central. And it's central because somehow it was what the enslaved used during their secret meetings. At home they call it a stick fight meeting, their secret meetings. And around those secret meetings developed a whole festival called the Can Brûlé Festival. And there's a whole story to the name Can Brûlé, which we won't go into now. But it seemed that once emancipation came, they continued those meetings and formed into bands of stick fighters that would fight each other to keep that spirit of the warriorhood going. Now, those same bands eventually in the yards became the steel bands, became the carnival bands. So in many ways, that grouping under the enslavement became the way that they organized themselves. So that even though some mass players today know nothing about stick fighting, right, and would even think it barbaric because it's about drawing blood, when you see them move and you see them operate, they go into a circle the same way, they hold their placards or their tridents or whatever the same way, they move the same, the steps are the same. So that is the core, that is the heart of it. But in addition to that, as a theater person, if you're working with Trinidadians, well, not just Trinidadians, anybody, you get a stick fight meeting or stick fight combat thing going, and you could actually use that frame to work out any scene. I mean, I have worked with actresses and so on in the United States where we use the stick fight frame to unravel a Tennessee Williams scene. Because it's combat, it's conflict, it's shifting status, it's all that. And it's in there. I would imagine it's in any combat. I mean, I suppose you could do it in fencing or whatever. I don't know fencing as good as I know Kalinda. There are a number of formulations that come from the mass. Yes, one is confrontation and participation. Yes, the other is dance and fight. But you could see how dance and fight and confrontation and participation could be the same. One of the things the enslaved had to do was to ritualize their dissatisfaction, ritualize their anger, or otherwise they would be extinguished. So the idea of the dance and fight is how do you dance and fight at the same time? So when you think I'm fighting, I'm really dancing. When you think I'm dancing, I'm fighting. There's an older guy in Trinidad, an old masquerader. He's about almost 90 years now, Naria Prue. He's been playing mass for 80-something years. And when you ask him what is mass, he says mass is dance and fight. He plays Black Indian, warrior. He has the language and the plumes and everything. And he says it's dance and fight. And when a Black Indian meets another Black Indian, it's a war of words, it's a war of dancing, dance and fight. And in there is metaphorized the whole dynamic of survival for the people.